Hello and welcome to Light Warrior Radio. My name is Dr. Karen Can, and I'm the author of Sensitivity is Your Superpower: How to Harness Your Gifts, Fulfill Your Purpose, and Create a Life of Joy. And if you are not part of our Light Medicine community, would love for you to be part of that. And we'll put the link below. It's free to join. We do monthly mini healings and all sorts of really fun stuff, especially for the highly sensitive person who we call sensitive souls. We also have a sensitive soul empowerment guide, so we'll put that link below as well. And then if you're new to my channel and you're watching this on video, you can actually click the subscribe button, and we hope that you enjoy our content. Today, I have a wonderful, wonderful woman with me, Ravinder Taylor, a friend of mine, and she has a beautiful, amazing book called Mind Training. And what I love about Ravinder's work is that the science is like that left brain, right brain, like putting it all together, not separating science from spirituality or vice versa. And I'll let her tell you more about the impetus for the book, the writing of the book, what's in it. In the meantime, let me just share a little bit more about Ravinder because some people are new to my channel and haven't seen her here before. So she is the president of Progressive Awareness Research, a company dedicated to bringing the very best in personal growth products and services. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Microbiology from, I'm not going to say the name of the university because it's really hard to say, in Wales, a Bachelor of Metaphysics from the University of Metaphysics in Sedona, Arizona, where I was just there a couple of months ago, and is an ordained interdenominational minister. She also completed a 3-year course at a National College of Hypnosis and Psychotherapy in London, England. So her work with progressive awareness began by co-authoring the Peripheral Learning Desk Reference, a volume dedicated to reviewing thousands of research studies examining pre-conscious learning. Then she spent the following 30 years researching both the theory behind why we do what we do and the practical applications of this learning. She greatly enjoys sharing this information in the weekly newsletter and her thousands of one-on-one interactions with individuals seeking guidance for breaking through blocks to success. And we're going to talk about that today as well. So many have praised Ravinder's insights and reported great success following her recommendations. She's also authored and co-authored over 200 personal motivation audio programs utilizing the Inner Talk technology. She's the co-host of the popular radio show Provocative Enlightenment with her husband, Eldon Taylor. She has made numerous radio and personal appearances where she has discussed tools and tips for understanding and overcoming self-destructive behaviors. So without further ado, hello, Ravinder. Thanks for being with us today.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for having me on. I very much appreciate it.
Yeah, I love it. Now, I know you've probably been doing like radio show after radio show after radio show with your amazing book launch, but for those that don't already know you, perhaps go back a little bit and share with us your experience. Like, how did you get to where you are today and then now publishing this amazing book called Mind Training? Kind of give us like the steps.
It has been a journey indeed. You're correct. My background was totally science-based. I went to the University of Aberystwyth in Wales. I did microbiology, that's it. I did microbiology there. I was a bit of a science snob back then. If science didn't show it, I didn't think it was real. And once I graduated, I was working in a path lab at the Leicester Royal Infirmary, but said very science-based. But then one day there were all these posters that went up around the hospital that was talking about a special presentation by a hypnotherapist, psychotherapist. Now, I had always thought hypnosis was that stuff you know, entertainers did on stage, trying to get people to look like chickens or cluck
Right.
around and that
Not
kind
my
of stuff.
favorite thing.
I didn't take it seriously at all, but this was a presentation that the hospital was hosting. It was packed full of doctors, nurses, people that work in the path lab, just everybody was there. The auditorium was absolutely packed. There were about 70 people that worked in my own path lab at the time, and most people were attending, but they're all in different parts of this auditorium. Just coincidentally, the guy doing the presentation, he was an anesthesiologist who also practiced hypnotherapy. And just as a coincidence, when he called on people to demonstrate certain aspects of hypnosis, he just happened to call on 3 people from my own lab. So I knew for certain that they weren't shills, These were my
Right.
colleagues, it wasn't set up at all. And so, I had a colleague where the lecturer put a pin through his arm and he didn't feel anything. I had a different colleague who um, was told to forget the number six totally. So I knew it was real, but then what really captivated my interest was a particular story he shared of a woman who had a pain in her arm, that she'd
Mm,
had this pain in her arm for many, many years, 10, 20 years. And she'd been to all the doctors, had all the tests, couldn't figure out what it was. She had come for hypnotherapy as a last resort. And under hypnosis, he did regression, went back to the incident where it all started. And it was some emotional incident. She hadn't forgotten it, but she had put it to the back of her mind. It was something that had upset her back then, but it was in the past. And so after the hypnotherapy session, she didn't think that could be it. That didn't make any
mm,
sense to her. She went home, but she called the hypnotherapist back the following day and said, right after the session, the pain had gone, but she couldn't believe it. She didn't understand it. So she wanted to give it time to confirm. So the following day. So she'd had this pain in her arm for all of this long time. They hadn't been able to find anything. She had one hypnotherapy session and the pain was gone. But the important thing that taught me was, the power of the subconscious mind, the information that we have there that still has an effect. How, I was fascinated by how the mind works. Why would an emotional trauma cause her to create a pain in her own arm? And that was where the journey started. So after that, I went and actually did a course in hypnosis and psychotherapy. At the end of that course, Eldon had been invited as a special lecturer. So that was how we met. And so he started
mm.
talking about subliminal. And once again, just like all the entertainment and the media out there, subliminal was put in the category of being a joke. But then, I learned more and more about it and I discovered why there was such an effort to act as though subliminal doesn't work, which doesn't make any sense when you think about
Mm.
all the advertisers that will use it. It's used in entertainment, it's used in music. So why would they use it if it doesn't work? So there's been my journey, learning about the power of the mind, learning about tools to recapture the power of our own mind, uh, and become empowered ourselves on this wonderful journey we call life. It's about maximizing our life experience.
Oh, that's really neat. I love what you said about your journey thinking, well, I just like me as a medical doctor, it's like that's fooey. Like, what is that stuff, right? It's like fluff, and then we get into it, we're like, wait a second, this actually works. Okay, and then keep discovering things. So I'm constantly discovering new things that I didn't think were real, then become seemingly real, but then realizing that the society is like my bias in saying it this way, but the society is like, look over here, over here, over here, over here. But I'm like, yeah, but what about here? You don't want me to look over here? No, really? Really? That's more interesting to me, right? So anytime there's something on the news that's like war, blah, 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 disaster, right? I'm like, okay, what are they hiding? Okay, what is it? What's really going on? I'm always looking the other way. I just probably drive them nuts, but anyway.
No,
Yeah.
that's a huge part of mind training, is to look beyond what they actually present to you and to
Mm,
try and actually find the truth. So yeah, no, that's
mm.
wonderful that you're questioning. Fact is, we turn off our questioning mind most of the time. So
Yes,
that's
it's
brilliant.
it's funny, Ravinder, maybe you have noticed this in people in general, and I'm making huge generalizations, guys, okay? So I just noticed that sometimes when there's me or a small group of us and we see things playing out, let's say in the media or news or Facebook or whatever it is, and we kind of go, this makes no sense to me. Like, absolutely makes no sense. Like, I have a very, very strong scientific mind, being a medical doctor and Bachelor of Science, maybe not quite as learned as you, but you know what I mean? Like, I just love science. And at the same time, I'm like, okay, I realize there's some things we don't know, and there will be continuing things that we aren't going to know. But if that causes that, and then they're saying this, then that doesn't make sense. But I'm like, why is it so few people seem to connect the dots where for some of us it's so obvious, like hello, like huge neon sign, and people are like, nope, they're not getting it. They're getting whatever the news is spewing at them.
You have to be trained in the art of thinking. And that sounds really crazy
Mm.
because we all think all the time. But to think for yourself is a huge step. There was one research study that I talk about in mind training where they're talking about parts of the brain that shut down in the presence of
Mm.
an authority figure. And when
Yes,
you're
I love that
watching
part of the book.
when you're watching TV, you are presented with authority figure after authority figure and fact
Mm.
checkers, and they've got the answers and you don't. But this particular research study, they think the audience was Christians, and then they had three presentations. One presentation was by a non-Christian, the other was by a Christian, and the third was a Christian healer. He was a famous Christian healer. And they had all these people connected up, and they actually saw part of the brain that is involved in judgment and discernment would shut down totally in the presence of an authority figure, so that they give their power up. And so whatever the authority figure says, they believe. And it takes work to stop and say, an authority figure in what? Especially on TV. They will have experts in one area giving their opinions in a different area, as though that they're still an expert, and they're not. So it takes work. There must have been something really good in your own background for you to have such a questioning mind, but it is rare. Most people will simply take on board the information that is presented to them.
Wow, that's fascinating. I know for me, I pretty much was a very obedient child. So, whatever the authority figure said, whether it be the church, especially the church, and teachers and everything, I just was like, I'm like the best kid, the top A student, and everything like that. And I think it wasn't until I went to university, and my then boyfriend was like, "Oh, you're just brainwashed," and I was so taken aback and so upset at that admonition that I was brainwashed. I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, oh, you religious fanatics and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, do you know about the Christian Crusades? And do you know that? And he's just basically fact dropped all this stuff. And I could not reconcile what I was taught with what he said, but what he said was true. And I'm like, well, wait a second. How come they didn't tell us that? And then there was like this, ah, and you probably know what that stage is. Some of it call it cognitive dissonance. Like, is that part of this process of training our minds to think better? If people want that, of course.
It's about being aware of how we intake information. As you said, before you went to college, all your information was coming from certain sources, and you weren't aware that there was a whole other world out there. And that's what your boyfriend was teaching you about. I had a very similar kind of experience. I was a very good Indian girl. I
Oh
followed the
boy.
rules. I did everything
Yeah.
just right up until I met Eldon, and then I
Thank you,
defined
Eldon.
everything about. Yeah, I'm so grateful for my life. I cannot begin to tell you how grateful I am for the experiences I have. Eldon and I come from really different backgrounds. So just like your boyfriend was teaching you about a world that you hadn't seen, Eldon and I teach each other constantly about worlds that the other hasn't seen. Enculturation process is absolutely huge, and it has its fingers in everywhere. You'll be stunned at the places where your beliefs, just what's going on around you, how strong those beliefs can be, and how it influences the placebo effect. Okay.
That's very interesting.
It's fascinating. I think the placebo effect is one of the best examples of the power of the mind. If you can take a cube of sugar and be told that it's something else and you're healed of whatever, the placebo effect is absolutely fascinating. But when you look at the placebo research, you get to see a whole lot more. So for
Mm.
example, the placebo response to hypertension drugs is really low in Germany. Why the
Mm.
Germans don't, it works everywhere else, but not in Germany. But when it comes to gastric ulcers, the placebo response in Brazil is particularly low. In Europe, it's a bit higher, and in Germany, it's the highest. So
Wow.
I mean, what is there in our enculturation that can have those kinds of effects? This other one that I came across too that I found disquieting, it actually speaks volumes, is to do with the placebo response in America between Caucasians and African Americans, Black Americans.
Mm.
Not sure what the preferred term is today, but with all respect, whichever. Um, but what they found was that Caucasians would take a black pill and see that as a stimulant, and a white pill as
Oh,
being
that's
as
right.
analgesic. But for the black population, it was the other way around.
Fascinating.
So, these things, the impact, the training that we've had, we may think that we have equal rights today, but there are fingers of the past still exerting an influence over everything. And when it comes all the way into the placebo response, that has to make you stop and think.
Mm.
So my training there is about looking at all of these different areas. You can't deal with all of it, but the more you're aware of, the greater the chance you have of becoming your own person, not just a product of your enculturation. So I could get away from, I don't have to be the good little girl, the good Indian girl. There are things I can do that the Indian community or my parents would tell me I wasn't being good if I was doing them. But it's not true. I've opened up horizons galore, just as you have. You've learned a whole lot more. Your own training, you're trained to be a doctor. It's like, oh my God, the education that goes into there. And it can take a great deal of courage to then go into areas that your field, medicine, can look down on, and you can say,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I'm educated, I've learned how to think, I've learned to do that, and I'm going to assess all the information. And you have to assess the information from scratch sometimes. You have to be open, not like a sieve, not, open, just everybody shove everything in, but you have to be open to possibilities, and that's where we find new breakthroughs.
Right. Like that openness with discernment, kind of integrating the knowledge that I mean, the one thing I used to really dislike, Ravinder, is calculus and and math. And I was really good at it, but I just despised it as a child. And had they told me back then, well, maybe not. Had they told me back then, it says, look, you may not be using this in everyday adult life, but the neurological patterns that are created with this problem solving will help you problem solve all sorts of difficult things in the future. Had they said something like that, I might have went, okay, I'll do the math, But I just was like, why am I learning this? And now it just seems, and I get it too. I mean, I'm sometimes scrolling on, and it's like there's a lot of the spoon feeding, for lack of a better term, going on. Think this, do this, that kind of thing. And what you're talking about, the whether it be medical acculturalization, sorry, wrong word, but I can't say that word yet, or just what somebody thinks is just normal if we step out of that culture, we're like, wait a second, that is not normal at all. I mean, that can be really stressful, I'm thinking.
Well, yeah, there's a question as what is normal? Normal
Mm,
isn't something that, society has imposed on you. There's lots of things that are not good that get imposed on you by society. Just common ideas. I hate to go back to the old example, the same old example, but it's true. Black slavery was considered normal. I'm
true.
sorry, that's awful. Absolutely awful. But there are so many people in that time and place who did not speak up about it. They didn't even see that it was wrong because society said that, all the particular societies that they moved in said that it was correct. So because of that kind of stuff, I try to always think about what is it I miss here? What am I missing?
Mm,
What am I not seeing? So
mm.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's a
have to.
great approach. That it's funny because it reminds me of the Fifth Agreement book from Don Miguel Ruiz. He has the Four Agreements, very popular, right? There's one called Fifth Agreement, and basically it's be skeptical, is what we're talking about right now. I'll give you an example. Recently I sold an old, a car of mine, and then my husband bought a used car as well, and he had to pay sales tax. So, in the past, I'd probably be like, yeah, whatever, you know? But I was like, wait a minute, wait, why do you have to pay sales tax? Because didn't you pay sales tax on the original car, or somebody did way back then? So then that person owns that car, and then now you're selling it to, person B, and they have to pay sales tax. Like that, because you sold that makes no sense to me. And no one's been able to explain why we have to pay double taxes. I still don't know, not know at this
Because
day.
the government wants a percentage of all the profits that everybody makes everywhere, you
Well,
know,
I don't know what they're doing with the money, but I mean, it just
wasting
seems
it.
like tax upon tax upon tax upon tax upon tax. I'm like, well, we're already been taxed, so why do I have to be taxed again? That makes no sense to me. People say that's normal.
Right. Exactly. And it'll take people standing up and questioning and pushing back against what is normal. But you know, there are lots of things in the world that we can't change. What we can change is what is inside us. And the more
Mm,
we learn to think for ourselves, there's been a great deal of research done on how we think. So you take Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, or Gladwell's book, Blink, they talk about the automatic thinking and the reasoned thinking. Most people operate on automatic, so they don't question all of these things. But the more you question, the more you're bringing in system two thinking, where you're actually thinking through a problem. It's in system one thinking that all the biases lay, all the automatic solutions, all the enculturation, everything that society has taught us is going to be buried in there, and we just regurgitate it automatically. If we can stop and incorporate more system one thinking in everything that we do, then we have the ability to become our real selves, to maximize, to get the obstacles out of the way, so that we can
mm.
discover what the real normal should be.
Yeah, it's fascinating that there are those, a lot of people that I hang out with anyway are just really excited and passionate about this process, and then there are others, including, people that I know and love, that it seems like it's just like, what are you guys talking? Like they just don't get. I'll just give an example. I said something to somebody in a little chat group recently about how the news is not real. Now I got that from a couple of sources. One is that I have my best friend used to work for the news out in LA, and they signed a non-disclosure agreement because they made stuff up, and they told them to make stuff up. And then they would syndicate it throughout the thing. And well, I mean, the first time he told me, my jaw just dropped to the table because I thought the news was real, right? So here I am, explaining to this person. Unfortunately, it was like I used the word fake news in the chat, and I was trying to explain this. But apparently, those two words have now been culturally ingrained to represent a particular politician that I was not talking about. I wasn't talking about, I'm not pro this politician or that politician. I'm apolitical, actually, right? I don't really care who wins. So, same bird, left, right, same bird. Anyway, but oh my gosh, the response was fascinating. People saying I'm harming them, and I'm like, I'm being derogatory statements. I'm like, to the news, how am I hurting you? Like, I just did not understand what they were talking about. But then later on, somebody said, I think they're putting you in that box with that
Yeah.
person who said that and coined that term. Thank you very much. Coined that term. So now, if I say those two words together, it is now programmed that people will react to those two words in the exact way they were programmed to react. And I was like, oh man, I got to censor myself again. So what happened there, Ravinder?
But the important thing, the really important thing to think about in that is, yes, those two words together triggered people, triggered a huge part of the population because they have got stuff just paired together so well. The important part for us to think about is, what is it that triggers us? What is
Mm,
it that stops us from thinking something through? What is it that we automatically go to and have an argument with our loved ones over, that also isn't true? So just taking a step back and once again realizing the power of enculturation and the power of your own subconscious mind.
Oh, so true, so true. It's like going back to the four agreements is like don't take anything personally. And when we point at somebody else, it's their fault. There's three fingers pointing back, right? That's like, oh man, they're my mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really great that you say that because I've noticed in myself that one of the things is like, oh wow, why am I getting triggered? And a lot of it has to do with fear of somebody getting hurt. It's still a fear. I mean, it's not my business, but somehow I make it my business. And maybe that's why I went into medicine to try to help people. I mean, there's this whole slightly codependent thing about, that to try to rescue people, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's been not so comfortable, let's just say, looking at myself.
It's a process. It's a learning. I think it's important to be kind to ourselves.
True.
We're all on this journey. There's going to be things that you look back on and say, did I really do that? Oh my God,
Mhm. Oh,
that
yeah.
that wasn't good. That's really common. Erik Erikson puts forward the 8 stages of development, and he actually goes through all of the different ages and the kinds of things that you're supposed to learn. And one of the things he says in there is, once you turn 60, you start looking back at your life and assessing it.
Hmm.
And he says the really wise people are those who have things that they don't like and things that they do like. It's not like you don't want to beat yourself up. You have to realize that we all have these things. I think it's beautiful getting older because we all make mistakes. So I think when you're younger, people can tend to be more judgmental, or they've got all of these expectations. By the time you get older, you realize we're all in the same boat. There isn't anyone
Mm.
that's perfect, that's done it all right. Not at all. We've all made mistakes. We've all got skeletons in the cupboards somewhere. But the important thing is to learn from them and say, okay, that was where I was. Perhaps I was triggered back then. Perhaps enculturation caused me to do that, but I see it today. I see
Yeah.
it today, and I'm choosing differently today.
Beautiful.
And all of these new choices have a forward effect. So they affect your future. They can put you onto a different path. One of the things in mind training that I talk a great deal about is positivity. So being positive is about how you feel today about your life. Optimism is about how you feel about the future. There was some research done out of Michigan State University that looked at some of these things, and what they found was people who are more positive today would actually experience fewer stressful situations in the future. Now, it's not to say that it changed what went on around you, but it came down to how you interpreted those events. So something happens to you and you say, this is stressful, and your cortisol goes up and you get upset and you get anxious, and you know all the other effects of the stress hormones, you know, the impact that has on your health, your blood pressure, your weight, all of these, it shuts down thinking. So
Yep.
what they found with this research was that if you can be more positive today, you will have fewer events that you interpret as stressful in the future. So there are fewer opportunities for you to have that surge of stress hormones.
Yeah,
Barbara
that is really
Fredrickson
powerful.
called that the upward spirals effect. And I just really like that term. It
Mm,
brings up pictures of, you know, continuing, because a spiral, you know, getting bigger and
yes, I
bigger
love that.
as it goes up, and having a greater and greater positive effect. So we actually outline ways. There are people who will say that they are naturally pessimistic, or people who say they're naturally optimistic, but you can cultivate it. There are techniques, and you start that with gratitude, with awe today. You can change how you think about future events rather than being really afraid of something bad happening. That you want to start training yourself to say, well, what if it doesn't happen? Why worry
Mm,
today about something that could happen tomorrow? Because that means the interim time you are spent in anxiety. And number one, it may not happen at all. So worrying about it's a waste of time. Number two, the worst possible can happen. But if you haven't wasted all that time worrying about it, you're in a stronger place to deal with it. But what is
yeah,
more
I love that. That
scary?
is so true. I got to tell you, this is, with the, as the recording today, we were just days from the presidential election in 2024. So in 2016, I believe it was, I remember when Donald Trump first came into office. Now, personality wise, not a big fan. Okay, that just doesn't,
Who is?
not my people. Let's put it that way. And but I didn't like anybody else either. So it's all relative. But I remember being on Facebook and going, well, that's interesting. I had a bias at the time. I realized that I had my blinders on as well, a lot. So I really felt like, this person shouldn't be president. But I was like, I was literally going into stillness and asking source, like, I'm making fun, okay? But I was like going into stillness, going, are you serious? You've got to be kidding me. This is our president, right? I know I don't really know about the alternatives, but seriously, are you saying this is for the highest good? And, I get yes. Okay. How is it for the highest good? So then I remember it's like Eldon's voice in my head, like I can't wait to see what good comes out of this, right? I mean, from Choices and
Perfect.
Illusions, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, right? And so I'm like, okay, fine, fine. I kind of let go of my attachment to what I thought would happen. What was fascinating was I didn't lose an ounce of sleep. It was very, very quick process that went through. I'm exaggerating just for humor, but I had healer friends, spiritual friends, like on Facebook, freaking out, like little freaking out. Like, the world is gonna burn and whatever. I can't sleep for days. And then I thought to myself, wait a second, what's wrong with this picture? So again, I'm gonna be honest, I went into judgment. I basically went on Facebook and said, get a hold of yourselves. If we can't hold the light and be calm and peaceful, how do you expect anybody else to? Anyway, I'm not sure it made any impact, but it's funny because it's like mirroring itself right now, the same sort of thing. And just like my in-laws, when President Obama became president, first part of me was like, "Ooh, the first black president, how exciting!" Right? But I was like, that's like the only tiny piece I knew. I didn't know anything about politics, right? Don't know. He was very well spoken, really like that. So my mother-in-law was like, "Oh God, the world is gonna go back," like the same reaction. The country is going to go down. There's going to be a riot. There's going to be rebellion at this black president. And I mean, it's not that she's like, anti-black, but it was just this thought process in where she lived in Oklahoma and everything. Like it's just like automatic. And so I just see that on both sides. So it's very interesting.
It is, but the best advice for everyone right now, because the last few months have been really difficult on America. We've
Yeah.
all dealt with heightened anxiety. You can't escape it. They work. I mean, both sides worked really hard to make you petrified of the other side winning. They work to do that. So that was part of the tactic. That's part of the programming, that they were both doing it deliberately so they can get their votes. But the best thing that we can do right now is, I wonder what good is going to come of this. That is a great one. There is a, don't worry about something until it happens. We can't do anything. Trump has been elected. That's all there is to it. We can't change it. So being afraid of what he might do is a waste of time. And then, of course, you have to go back and look at what happened before as well. I mean, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
like
Well, and then
politics. I
the
don't like
fake news
politics
part
at
was,
all.
yeah, and the fake news part that I was mentioning before was all about the you I think you'd find this entertaining. This is just my opinion, people. I don't have proof. Um just being God talking. Um Unfortunately, like, or fortunately, I used the word fake news, but what I meant was that what I was getting intuitively was that the news was spinning the hurricane um Helene to be this horrible, horrible, horrible thing. So when I'm talking to God about, because we do weather magic, so we can shift and change, things when we're allowed to do. And literally, it was like it's not that big a deal, but it is not, let's say, natural. And we're going to see whether human consciousness can make it bigger. And I'm like, of course it can make it bigger. If I can make it smaller, millions of people can make it bigger, right? So that's why I was trying to get across unsuccessfully. Um, and so, but I was not expecting the double. I was not expecting one and then the other. So they primed the fear, right? And the first one actually wasn't anything like they said, just saying. But then the next one is like, now we got a double one. I was not prepared for that one. I was like, oh, you guys are smart. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is like presidential election, hurricane damage, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, so people are upset at me because I said, there was fake news. And I'm like, well, I said that before the first hurricane. And yes, we made it bigger. Thank you very much. So, oh my goodness. So there's all these things people are coming, like, are being bombarded with these messages. So I think your book's really timely and really needed, right? For
Yeah.
those of us that go, okay, now what do we do? I'm getting bombarded with all these things. You've given us some really great tips. Do you have any other things you want to share today about, some practical, maybe simple things that people can do or be to help them?
If we're talking about right now, after the election and the amount of stress out there and the number of people who are just so upset at the outcome, I would say turn your TV off, turn
Mm,
the social networking off, reconnect with yourself, go
mm,
outside, um, smile, do the things that you can do to bring the happy brain chemicals on. And so smiling, even if it's a fake smile, will increase happy brain chemicals. Going outside, you get a boost in serotonin. Do some
mm,
exercise, maybe bring in some endorphins as well. create a habit of going out walking, and then get the dopamine hits too. But do the things that will help you feel better. And when you come back, you'll discover this other stuff isn't as painful as you think. It doesn't have to consume you. It
Mm.
doesn't make any difference. We vote, we have one vote out of how many millions. You do the best that you can, but politics is gonna go on without you. The government is gonna go on. What you're in charge of is your immediate surroundings, your life, your family, your friends. So many relationships have been blown up over this, and I think that is tragic. I've heard about couples getting divorced because one wants to vote one way, one wants to vote the other. The really important part in mind training is how deliberate some of these things are. They are designed to get you angry and upset. We've heard about the algorithms. Everyone, you may not know what an algorithm is, but you've heard about Facebook's algorithms. You're aware that the algorithms are designed to take you down particular rabbit holes. They're going to swallow you up. So you express an interest in something, they're going to give you more of that and more of that and more of that and more of that.
Yeah. Sometimes I go, organic underwear, organic underwear.
That's brilliant.
It's really
But
funny,
yeah,
actually. Oh my god. Then I get getting catalogs for, for like, you know, uh, big, African American women. And I was like, no, that wasn't it. No, no, you got that one wrong.
but these algorithms are designed to get you engaged. They don't care what you engage with. But
Yeah.
the more emotionally invested that you can get, the angrier you can get, the more you're gonna be there. And so the more that they can hook you and sell you and convince you. So being aware that this is going on, you've got to take the information with a pinch of salt.
Mm.
You
It
have to
seems like
realize
if
that
we can,
they're doing this on purpose.
yeah, if we, I mean, some people will be like, well, probably not our audience, but you'll be like, what? Like me years ago, we're doing this on purpose, right? So we get past that part. And then, it seems like that neutral stance, like I get myself in trouble, and I'm realizing it when I do, is when I start judging, when I think that I'm right and something or someone else is wrong. When I feel like I'm attached to it has to be the certain way, then I start going down that road of not so happy. And yeah, and a lot of it has to do with my environment, surroundings, media, that kind of thing. And luckily, I'm catching myself faster and faster now, so I can get back to that neutral and realizing, wait a second, if I believe currently it's working for me, if I believe that my being state, my vibration, my resonance is bringing into manifestation or materialization what it is I, am dominantly paying attention to, and my emotions and energy are creating, it behooves me to really be cognizant of what am I putting out there? Am I putting in judgment, blame, shame, all that kind of stuff? Or am I at peace? So I'm like really working at that. And it's actually really fun. As you can see, I'm actually in a pretty good mood most of the time.
It is definitely a two-way street. How you feel affects the world out there. How the world feels can affect you inside too. And we want to take control of it all. We want to make sure that our contribution in the world is positive, and we want to make sure that the contribution the world is putting into us is not negative, because our subconscious mind is going to intake all of this information. So we need to guard it. We need to
Mm,
we need to protect it, nurture it, um, pay attention to what is going on and what is in our highest best. And the anxiety over the elections is a waste of time, because there's nothing we can do about it.
yeah, it seems like a
There
big
isn't
siphon of
anything
energy.
Yeah, there isn't anything that we can do it. So why are we going to throw away more of our lives right now in that anxious state? Why not turn to our loved ones and give them a hug?
Yeah.
hug, 8-second hug is really healing. And then you connect with someone and then you realize what really matters in the world. And all of this fear mongering that goes on out there, the vast majority is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And our only responsibility is those places where we can have a say, like when you vote, you do your best, be done with it now. Let's get back to normal lives. Let's stop allowing others to control us. Just take a few deep breaths, focus
Mm,
on what's important.
that's beautiful and sage advice. Thank you, Ravinder. Love that you're here with us again. Love your book, love your work, and Eldon's work as well. So grateful to have you as friends. Where can people find the book, and where can they find more about you?
You can get the book anywhere, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you like to buy books, you can pick them up anywhere. You can learn more about me by going to my website. That's ravindertaylor.com. So that's RAV for Victor, IND for dog, ER, Ravinder Taylor, TAYLOR.com. So yeah, you can learn more about me there. With mind training, if you choose to pick up a copy right now, we have a book launch special going on, and it is still up there still. So if you go to ravindertaylor.com and click on the mind training link, that'll take you to the book launch special, and there's 25 additional bonus gifts that you can get just for ordering a copy of the book. And if you do get the book and read the book, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. The kinds of exercises that you choose. It's all about self-empowerment. So there's loads of techniques in there. The idea is for you to choose the techniques that appeal to you the most, to understand how and why the techniques work so that you can tweak them. There can be a technique that doesn't quite fit the way I have it outlined, but I give you the information so you can adjust it to fit your own personal lifestyle. It is about self-empowerment. It's about coming into your own. It's about becoming the person that you choose to be.
Yes, that's beautiful. I think, I've been hearing this word empowerment so much lately. It really is almost like the theme, like as if there's a theme song for 2025. It's like empowerment, empowerment, empowerment. So this is beautiful. Thank you so much for all your hard work and research and creating this beautiful book and helping people really dig into themselves, love themselves, and be able to have all these wonderful tools. Thank you, my friend. Love you so
Thank you,
much.
Karen. Your work is wonderful too. We love and appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for listening in. Until next time on Light Warrior Radio, much love, and we will see you then. Bye, everyone.